This year our show will be the music provided in the first half of the show will be the Birmingham Symphony. They will back Ray Price, who will open the show, then Tennessee Ernie Ford, then Intermission, then Don Williams, then the Oak Ridge Boys, then Roy Clark. I tried to get some biggies. That show, if you could buy that show and put it in Vegas, it would cost you $96,000 for one night. We've invited some new people this year who have verbally committed to the tournament. Each year we try to get more new celebrities and et cetera down, and we have approximately 55 celebrities this year playing golf, and some of the people who have made verbal commitments to us is George Blanda, Leslie Nielsen, who is quite a well-known actor, Larry Gatlin, who's one of the hottest young singers in the business today, my dear friend Grandpa Jones from Hee Haw, who told a Canadian writer, and I was sitting there when he told him, the man says, well, you people eat a little different down south, don't you? And Grandpa said, yeah, we eat stewed auger holes. And he wrote it down, you know.
France arrived by plane at Danley Field this afternoon. At the airport, he discussed current preparations for the new Motorsports Hall of Fame to be built in Alabama.
Well, it'll be right in the very close vicinity of the Talladega Speedway, and projects coming along, I'd say, about on schedule. We haven't broken ground yet. We're still in the fundraising stage, but I'm looking at probably sometime in May for a groundbreaking.
Today, France also attributed the controversy surrounding the Dixie 500 race November 5th to a scoring mix-up. In that race at Atlanta, Donnie Allison was declared the winner after Richard Petty thought he won the race.
Scoring mix-ups, they happen all the time, and bad calls of officials in all sports happen. I know that, well, they're still arguing about some fellow that missed second base in baseball 40 years ago. So NASCAR is the finest thing in motorsports, and I'm proud of the job that the officials do. And they made certainly the right decision on the real important issue, and that was the safety of the spectators and the contestants at the Dixie 500.
James Spann, WSFA TV Sports.
On Judge Richard Emmett's last day on the bench, he handed down the first death sentence in Montgomery County since 1957. Judge Emmett said the aggravating circumstances, such as the brutality of the murders, the absence of evidence to negate the defendant's testimony, and the absence of provocation, outweigh the mitigating circumstances, which are no previous criminal record, a proven record of mental instability, and the young age of the defendant. Following the sentencing, Montgomery County District Attorney Jimmy Evans said he hopes this sentence will deter future brutal and savage murders such as this.
I do think that it is a deterrent. I do think that the grand juries will be indicting under the capital felony sections of our law in the future. I think the people are ready now to bite the bullet and do what they need to do to stop brutal, savage, vicious murders.
Barard's attorney, John Capel, said he will continue on the case and carry out the appeal process.
Notice of appeal is really automatic under our law, and it would be a long time in coming because the transcript, all the record of all the testimony that was taken down first has to be assembled, and then that has to be dug into, examined, arguments and briefs have to be written, and I can't tell you when that will be.
Well, how successful do you feel an appeal will be?
No, I couldn't tell you that. Not till I examine the record and have had the opportunity of writing the brief.
Well, in light of the defendant's age and circumstances?
Well, that of course plays into it. Yes, that definitely be a factor, but that's just one of many, many factors that goes into an appeal.
The victim's parents said they feel justice has prevailed.
Maybe this will be the beginning of the turning of the tide toward increasing justice and decreasing crime. We sure hope so. If this decision to execute the death penalty can help bring about a new era of law and order, then maybe our son will not have died in vain. Marion and Darrell Thompson.
The handing down of this death sentence is the first in Montgomery County since 1957, but the effect it will have on future crimes such as this is yet to be seen. From the Montgomery County Courthouse, Janet May, WSFA TV News.
An economics official recently used the words depression or mandatory guidelines as the alternative to the people's acceptance of the wage and price voluntary guidelines. Was he speaking for the Carter administration or rather just as an economics expert?
Well, as you know, that was Mr. Kahn, and the question of whether continued inflation will produce an actual depression or just a severe recession, whether it will be just something that hurts economically or whether it will be a final straw in straining our social fabric, I frankly don't know. Whether you call it a recession or depression, whether you call it a serious depression or a serious recession, there is no doubt that if we fail to get a grip on inflation, then very difficult economic times face us. And those who lose the most as a result of our self-indulgence and our inability to deal with inflation will be those who can least afford it. So whatever term you choose to use, his comments that we would pay the price very heavily if we failed, yes, he was speaking for the administration.
Alabama's incidence of rabies is continuing to climb, although it is still below many other states. Georgia has had well over 200 positive cases of rabies. Here in Alabama, the state's health department is busy running rabies tests. Montgomery's testing station here has conducted over 2,000 such tests, which take at least 4 hours to complete.
The first thing that's done is the brain is removed from the animal. The brain is then sectioned, and smears are made of the various sections of the brain. The sections are various parts of the brain where the rabies virus may be located. These smears are then dried, and then they go through a staining procedure. They are stained, and then they go through an incubation period. This all takes approximately 4 hours. The smears are then ready to be observed under the microscope. We look at the slides and determine if there's a positive or negative. If it is positive, the state veterinarian is immediately notified. The physician that's involved is immediately notified, and of course the person that was involved.
In the past week, Alabama's number of positive cases has increased. State Public Health Veterinarian Dr. Wallace E. Birch.
We estimate approximately 100 human exposures. We've had 2 more today, one from Lee County and one from Cherokee County.
The last time there was a marked increase in cases of rabies in Alabama was in 1973. The outbreak occurred in foxes. This year's marked increase in rabies is occurring in raccoons. Health officials urge that you contact the local veterinarian if you suspect an animal in your neighborhood of having rabies. 2 humans died in 1951, and since there have been only single fatalities in 1953, 54, 56, 59, and 1963, there have been none since. At Montgomery's Public Health Department laboratories, Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News. 2 weeks ago, all 67 of Alabama's counties were ordered to enforce a no-burn ban. Last week, the situation's improved enough to lift the ban in all but 13 of the counties. Forestry Commissioner C.W. Moody now has ordered the lifting of those no-burn bans in those counties.
Our citizens have been cooperating. Our fire numbers are down. We're on top of the situation now, and we feel that we can lift the no-burn ban. If our citizens will cooperate and be exceedingly careful, it's possible that we won't have to ask for the no-burn order to be reinstituted. But we don't see any outlook for rain between now and Friday, and so if we're not careful, we'll have to be back into a no-burn situation shortly.
Moody noted a minimal increase in the fires over the weekend, 60 of them burning some 900 acres, but he called those statistics manageable. Since October 1st, over 105,000 acres of timberland have burned as the result of 2,639 fires, bringing the timber loss to nearly $3.7 million and an overall economic impact to the state of $62 million. While the ban has been lifted, Moody says it could be reinstated again at any time.
If it doesn't rain Friday, I suspect that by the weekend we may be back into a no-burn situation.
At the State Forestry Commission, Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
The prosecution, led by District Attorney Jimmy Evans, told the court Berard knew what he was doing that April night when he shot and killed the two teenagers, one of them his best friend, and that the sentence should be allowed to stand. Defense Attorney John Capel told the court Vincent Berard is a sick boy who's never been arrested for anything, who was under extreme duress when he committed the killings, and whose judgment was impaired last April. And then Defense Attorney Capel said in an emotion-filled voice, and I'm quoting now, "I beg for this boy's life, and that he be given a chance to live." Later in an interview, Attorney Capel said he felt Judge Emmett would take the facts and weigh them fairly.
It was an emotional session for me, the district attorney, those two families, the Berards, the family. It's just, as you know, Mr. Berard went back again to the hospital yesterday with another heart attack. And 3 destroyed families. We have a very sick boy. I think the Reverend Matheson, I think the Father McGinnis spoke beautifully of what justice would be. I think Judge Emmett will take that into consideration, along with the statements of one boy's parents, the fact that the other boy's parents did not say anything. I think Judge Emmett, with his years of experience, has the ability to weigh each and every witness, each and every word that came from that witness. To put it shortly, I would say that it's now in Judge Emmett's hands. It's in Emmett's hands and it's in God's hands, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Judge Richard Emmett's decision as to whether Vincent Berard will live or die is expected to be handed down Friday morning, 2 days from now. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Montgomery County Courthouse.
There were 6 individuals who spoke at the Alabama Law Enforcement Planning Agency forum dealing with a proposal to lower the maximum juvenile age to 16 instead of 18 as it now stands. 3 spoke in favor of the change, while the other 3 defended the present status. The arguments were limited in nature. Those advocating the change cited increased juvenile court dockets and recidivism.
If we continue at the level we're doing, we're not going to do anything but shuffle papers. The probation staff, and I speak for Mobile primarily because of the statistics I have, the caseload is now increased from between 35 and 40 cases per probation officer. They can handle that. They can deal with kids. It is now increased up to approximately 58. We've increased the probation officer's load 50% and given him no extra tools.
Those opposing the change voiced their main point, the ability of judges to direct 16 or 17-year-olds to stand trial as adults.
These 16 and 17-year-olds, we have already said through our other statutes that they cannot get married without permission of someone. They cannot make a contract without an adult, a guardian or something joining in, and we won't let them do a lot of these things in civil ways, and yet we would advocate that they shall be treated as a criminal as an adult.
During a question and answer session, a majority of the questions tested the reasoning of the proposed change. The forum developed after the State Supervisory Board voted unanimously several months ago in favor of the proposed change. There was also indication that a bill to this end will be introduced in the next session of the state legislature. Chris.
All Americans have a favorite pastime. For some, it's football. For others, it's baseball. But for Montgomeryans, it's elections. And now that our general election results have reached the ripe old age of 1 week, it's time to tread forward and get those voters back to the polls. Assuming that the City Council will tonight adopt the ordinance calling for a special election, it's safe to say that at least 4 people will soon qualify for the unexpired term of Councilman Larry Dixon. Dixon was sworn in yesterday as state representative from House District 81. The 4 persons showing interest in that council seat are furniture salesman Tom Jones, community leaders Martha Knockman and Elise Reynolds, and photographer Paul Robinson. To qualify, one must be a resident of the city or district for at least 6 months prior to the election, and a signed statement of candidacy expressing qualifications and desire to run is also required. Interested residents must qualify with the Montgomery County Judge of Probate before November 21st. The election is scheduled for December 12th. From City Hall, Janet May, WSFA TV News.
The Poets advanced to the quarterfinals after a close come-from-behind victory over Murphy of Mobile last week. Viger defeated Fairhope in the opening round. Lanier head coach Cliff Little says that defeating Viger will be no easy task.
They're a real good football team. In order for us to stay in it, we have to beat Viger. We've worked on our offense and our defense. We haven't changed much. We're not going to change this late in the season because this is what got us here, and that's what we're going to stay with.
One of the Poet players who turned in a good game last week was senior linebacker Earl Smith, who made several key tackles.
Earl had a real good game. So did Stanley Roney. He had an outstanding game, probably one of his best. Earl always plays good football.
Lanier's victory over Murphy last week came at Crampton Bowl. Coach Little said that this week's long trip to Mobile could have some effect on his team's performance.
A long trip is tiring and it's boring and it breaks your routine, and when you break your routine then you suffer the consequences of losing your attention on things that should be.
If Lanier does beat Viger Friday, then they will advance to the semifinals and will play the winner of the Jeff Davis-Berry game, which will be played in Crampton Bowl this weekend. That, of course, means there is the possibility of another Jeff Davis-Lanier matchup, but Coach Little said that possibility hasn't entered his mind yet because of current preparations for the Viger game. I'm James Spann, WSFA TV Sports.
The State Health Department reports 39 positive rabies cases in Alabama. 26 of these are in a 9-county southeast area of the state. Health officials report rabies temporarily prevalent among a number of animals, but has had no reported increase in cases since the weekend. Raccoons are the most prevalent carrier, and hunters who come in contact with these animals should heed Health Department warnings. Charles Kelly, head of the Game and Fish Division of the Conservation Department, has cautioned hunters to take certain precautions as hunting and trapping season opens.
The deer season opens Friday, and of course people will be carrying dogs into these areas where they're subject to coming in contact with some of these rabid raccoons or other animals there, and certainly would want to warn all hunters and doubly ask all hunters to check the status of the inoculation of these dogs for rabies, and if they're not up to date, for goodness sakes, to get them inoculated before they go into these southeastern Alabama counties. Also, on November the 20th, the trapping season opens, and there will be numerous raccoons trapped in that area, and of course trappers will be handling those animals, and they certainly should be extremely cautious to avoid any kind of a bite or scratch or anything like that, and if they do acquire a scratch or a bite from one of these animals, they should go ahead and have that head sent to the health department for an analysis, and they shouldn't in any way damage the head if they can help it by, you know, busting the skull or anything like that, because if they do, they're going to make it practically impossible to make a true analysis, and may wind up having to take the shots, not really knowing where that animal was rabid or not. But
there have been no reports of rabid animals in Montgomery County, but Elmore County reports a laboratory-confirmed case of a rabid bat. Lee County confirms a rabid flying squirrel. 6 North Alabama counties report cases of rabies. George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
Representatives from the national and regional offices of the General Services Administration were here in Montgomery today to make an on-site evaluation of Union Station. The 81-year-old Victorian Gothic and Romanesque revival structure is one of 3 train stations in the southern region being refurbished by the federal government. According to a GSA official, the National Landmark was one of the most prestigious depots in the country because of its meticulous architecture and enormous 600-feet shed. If today's on-site evaluation is favorable, members of the review team will begin preparing a prospectus to submit to Congress for funding of the restoration. Merriman Reformer says he suspects the report will be in the city's favor.
And hopefully we can move on closer to the time of getting the actual work started on the station.
Okay, after they report their findings, what is the next procedure?
Well, the next procedure would be then for GSA to come back to me and to the City Council and say, we will do the following things if, in fact, you will donate the station to the federal government. Then they would outline what they were going to do, and generally, I think they're talking in terms of the top 2 floors for federal offices, the east end hopefully for the Tourist and Information Center, the west end for the Railroad Museum, and possibly a restaurant and shops in the center area utilizing part of the shed area. It's a beautiful station, and I'm so proud I don't know what to do.
If the City Council approves the GSA's final recommendations, this grand old building should begin showing new signs of life in about 4 months. From Union Station in downtown Montgomery, Janet May, WSFA TV News.
By 5 p.m., nearly 90,000 Montgomery County residents purchased 1979 car tags. Almost 15,000 of those bought their tags in the past 3 days. Additionally, an estimated 7,000 more bought their tags through the mail. Tax Assessor Marvin Driver says those who mailed in their tag applications after the November 1st deadline will find it coming back to them in the mail, uncompleted. Were there any other problems?
The only problem this year, the legislature passed a law that each tag had to be transferred that went in the owner's name from last year. They couldn't just rewrite them. They had to go to the probate office and have a transfer made out before they come over here, and that's created the problem.
For those who are late in buying their tags, the fine tacked on will amount to $2.08 for passenger cars and 15% of the tax on the tag for trucks. That penalty will increase month to month. At the Montgomery County Courthouse, Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Okay. Yeah.